Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Version 1, a podcast where interesting people come to talk about their creative process, imposter syndrome, inspiration, failures along the way, and much more. I'm your host, Waverly, and you can follow the show on Instagram at Version 1 Podcast and subscribe to our Substack, version1podcast.substack.com. You can also find me on buymeacoffee.com/Waverly Colville if you want to support the show. You can listen to this episode wherever you get your podcasts or head over to YouTube to watch the video version. Remember to leave us a nice review and rate us 5 stars. All right, let's get into the episode. Hi, everybody. I am here with my guest this week, Paul Pape. He is Santa for Nerds, founder of Gamify Business, and author of Quit Selling Your Shit. Paul, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Waverly. How are you today? Man, my
I
tongue is
am
not working.
I am doing well. How are you? Where are you based, Paul?
I'm in Nebraska, actually, Omaha, Nebraska, and I'm doing pretty well. So,
No way. I love Omaha. My sister actually lives out in Lincoln, and I've been to
okay.
Omaha several times because my dad used to work for Berkshire Hathaway, and
Yep.
my sister went to University of Nebraska in Lincoln, and she still lives in Lincoln and met a nice Nebraska boy, married him, and they're expecting a baby. So I'll be spending a lot
Nice.
of time in Nebraska in the next year or so. So love
Feel
Nebraska,
free to
huge
stop by
fan.
the studio sometime, and we can chat, grab a coffee, and chat. That'd be
Oh my
great.
gosh, I would love that. Okay, I'll hit you up next time I'm in Omaha.
Sounds good.
But yeah, it's a wonderful city. I love Nebraska. Could we start with just having you introduce yourself and what exactly does Santa for Nerds mean?
Okay, so my name is Paul Pape. I'm a freelance artist, is basically what my real job is. But what I do that's different than most artists is I am completely 100% commissions based. I do not sell a product. I sell the idea of being able to make whatever it is that you can come up with. And I've been doing this for about 20 years now. I've worked for companies like Disney, Universal, Nickelodeon, The Tonight Show, you name it, I've probably had my hand on it somewhere. Now, how Santa for Nerds came about was I was working with a client, and I've been trying for years to put on my business card a really succinct, neat way of putting it. We've tried everything from want fulfillment specialist to you name it, we put it on there, and nothing really sticks because nobody really understands what it means. And one time I was working with a client, she goes, "You really are just Santa for Nerds." And I was like, "Ding, there it is. That's the title because everybody understands what a Santa is. Everybody understands what a nerd is. Put those two together, and then you kind of get who I am. It's whatever you can wish for." And I work in a lot of nerdy stuff, which I love. So it just really fits. If you can wish for it, I can probably make it happen.
That's so cool. Could you give some examples of some of the things you've made?
Yeah, I've started out making Mii's from the Nintendo Wii back in the day, those little avatars. So I've made well over 1,500 of those. They're all
Wow.
handmade. I do custom engagement ring boxes. It's a hugely popular thing, which is super nerdy. So whatever your nerddom is, or not nerddom, I've made everything from fake watermelons and apples to really complicated puzzle boxes, a time bomb once, you name it. I probably made it. And I say that a lot, but I've done thousands and thousands of pieces. I've probably touched on it. And so, yeah, and then for like places like the Universal or Nickelodeon or Disney, whenever they have a prop that they don't really understand how to make it or don't think it's plausible, they always call me up and they're like, "Hey, is this something that you can do?" "Yes." "How can you do it?" And that's what I would create. And I work really quickly and succinctly, so that's what allows me to work in the television and film industry so well.
Wow, that's incredible. Yeah, there's so much to dive into there. I'm so excited to be able to talk to you about all the things you do because you're so creative and awesome. When you were a child, what did you want to be when you grew up? Were you always into sort of like collectibles and unique items and things like that?
I always liked making things. It's really ironic. I mean, it might take a little dark turn, but I grew up with a brother who liked to destroy my stuff. That's just the way it went. And so if I made him mad, he would destroy my stuff. And so I stopped buying things for myself because it was such a waste of money because I knew it would end up destroyed. So what I did is I started making the things. And so I would make all my toys. He'd destroy them. I just make them again. And it really just became like a vicious cycle. But it ended up helping me in the long run. What did I want to be when I grew up? I think a gray elf that lived on a different planet. I think is what I wanted to be when I grew up. Didn't work out. So then I found theater and it was close enough. And so I went into acting. I started off as an actor and then went into design and all the other aspects of it later on.
Very cool. That's awesome. So as you're creating these things and it sounds like working as an actor, when did you sort of like shift into what you're doing now?
Actually came kind of out of left field. I was a professor teaching design at the University of Nebraska Omaha, actually,
Oh,
and
cool.
I was there for 3 years, and I was in my third year. I was not loving the bureaucracy of teaching, but I loved the actual teaching aspect of it. And one of my students, really good friend of mine, I'm still friends with him today, asked me if I could make him a me of him and his girlfriend for Valentine's Day, and I said, yeah, sure, why not? And this is before everybody had a Facebook account. This is before YouTube was big. It's way back in time. And I made this for him, and what I didn't know is that he actually uploaded it to a nerdy, like basically website called Super Punch, which basically just kind of highlighted nerdy things around the world. And what happened is they included my contact information, and people started asking if I could make theirs as well. And I started getting more money and opportunities from that on the side than I was actually as a professional professor as a full-time gig. And so I asked my wife if I could stop being a professor, which I wasn't really loving, and try and do this full time. And she said, I'll give you 1 year. I got lucky and had a couple viral things happen within that year. And she's like, you obviously know what you're doing, so just keep doing that. That was over 20 years ago.
Wow, that's incredible, and it just sounds like it just grew from there. That's awesome.
Yep.
When you were in that first year, and you were just starting this new business, and you weren't sure if it was gonna work out, or what you probably had no idea what it would grow to today. What were those early days like? Like, were you really self-confident and excited? Did you feel like doubtful of yourself or imposter syndrome? Like, what were those early days like?
Really funny. Imposter syndrome didn't happen until I got later in my career. I think I have like this really weird, like belligerently optimistic aspect, like outcome of my life. I just think everything's going to work out. And so when I started this, I'm like, yeah, it'll work. And I'll just figure it out as I go. I also am a firm believer in bend, don't break. When opportunities present themselves, bend and see where they take you, as opposed to being rigid and saying, this is the only thing that I do. And that ability to kind of go where with the flow has led me to better opportunities. And I think that's a big aspect of it. But when I was first starting out, I mean, I was really optimistic, but I spent a lot of time playing video games because there wasn't a lot of work pouring in. And I didn't really understand marketing at the time. And again, there wasn't social media or a lot of social media. I think I was uploading to Flickr. Even
Wow.
like any better. That's when it was. That was my social media at the time. And so
Uh-huh.
I would upload all my images there, and then people would find it. And then eventually, I got onto Tumblr and I got onto all these other social media places. But that those first couple of years, I spent, when jobs would come to me, I never really looked for the work. People just kept saying, "Oh, can you make this? Can you make this?" But I wasn't making a lot. I was not charging enough for sure, to be able to get there. But that lesson was learned pretty early on because I started doing trade shows because I'm like, oh, people got to get the word out, find out who Paul is. And so I'd go do these trade shows. And I was looking around, I was doing my research, and I was looking at competitors, and I was like, oh, these people are about the same skill range as me, so I should be charging about that much. But what I didn't recognize is there was no reputation I had. I had zero. They had 20, 30 years on it. And so they were coming out of the gate selling $700 pieces. And when I tried doing that, people were like, we don't know who you are. It's not worth that. And I was unfortunately in a position where I didn't understand that I had to sell not the product because the product itself wasn't worth $700. I had to sell the artist behind it, and that took me a long time to learn. And so that's really kind of how that first couple years went. As far as the imposter syndrome goes, that didn't happen honestly until I got into the consulting business because I'd been doing creative stuff for so long and having people come to me and say, "Hey, can you do this?" When you get into the consulting, there's not a lot of people knocking down my door, the artists, Santa for Nerds, saying, hey, can you consult me on my business? And so I actually had to go out there and start doing that. And that's when the imposter syndrome really kicked in. So here I am, 47, 46 years old, and I'm like, I'm faking it till I make it here, people. And so, and that's really when I was like, do I have the chops to do this? Do I have that? And fortunately, I've had some opportunities that have really kind of shown me, yeah, this is where you're supposed to be. But that imposter syndrome, it doesn't go away. It just kind of rears its head in different ways.
Yeah, absolutely. I love what you said when you said bend, don't break. I absolutely love that. And I think that's like, you could apply that to so many different things. So I think that was very well said. So after the first couple of years, as your business is growing, could you talk to me sort of about like how your business changed and evolved?
Think again, it comes down to that bend, don't break. A lot of the opportunities that I had were people who were kind of in a position of desperation. They're like, I want this. I don't know where it can be made. And they just saw this guy who's just putting out random things constantly. And so they would just send me an email because what's the worst that can happen? The guy says, no, I can't do it. And every time that they would send me an email, I'd be like, yeah, sure, let's figure it out. And it's a confidence of knowing that I can make whatever, and it will be good enough for the client at the time. It may not be 100% or whatever. And that mindset really comes from theater. Because when you're doing theater, especially as a designer, as properties and scenic design, what would happen is you
Cool.
do a show every 6 weeks. And
Mhm.
like one show, I'm building like ultra realistic sand castles. The next one, I'm decorating cakes. The next one, I'm an electrician and I'm having to wire up a fake house. Like you learn all of these different skills because the show requires it and no one else is going to do it for you. And so I got into a lot of things like magic and pyrotechnics and all these weird things. And you would think all those skills wouldn't relate, but when it comes to doing custom stuff, when you become Santa for nerds, people will ask for the weirdest things. And I'm like, yeah. And magic, knowing how to do magic, working for David Copperfield actually has been the thing that has helped me the most because a lot of the things that I
Wow.
sell are hidden pieces. And so, or they want things to be magic. Like I do a lot of Harry Potter stuff, and people are like, I want the magic of Harry Potter captured in real life. And I'm like, well, you understand it's not real. And they're like, we don't care, just make it magical. And so I've had to use sleight of hand, I've had to use trick of the eye, all of these different skills that I learned doing really random magic things to actually incorporate it into my work. And it's been really successful.
Wow, that is so cool. That's awesome. It sounds like you're sort of like a jack of all trades that's able to like piece together all these different sort of skill sets and combine them in ways that maybe they've never been combined before to create these very unique items. That's so cool. Could you talk to me a bit about some of the different processes you use to create your items, like 3D printing or woodworking, or like, what are all the different sort of like processes that you use?
Oh man, we got time for this? Okay, so I started off with hand sculpting. That's really where my bread and butter. I love to build like scale models when I was doing scenic design. So you'd have to build all these things like really meticulous to scale versions of things. And then I got into sculpting, so I would sculpt a lot with my hands. So I'd use a lot of polymer clays. I worked with I used to do special effects makeup, so I'd work with those kind of clays as well, monster clays, and I do molding and casting, so I'd work in silicones and plasters and that kind of stuff. Then I got into 3D printing, so I do a lot of 3D printing. I have FDMs, I've got resin printers. Then I got into lasering, so I've got laser cutters and laser engravers. I've got a full wood shop. I do metalworking. You name it, I've probably done. And I keep saying that phrase, but it's true.
Wow.
I work with a lot of different materials. Like on my desk right now, like I just printed something in resin. I've got a carbonite here. I've got something that's been vacuum metallized here. I've got stickers, custom stickers that I've done here. I've got some leather work over there. I mean, I really just, it's whatever the job calls for. And I love about that is that there is no. It's like improv. It's always yes and then I'll
Huh?
figure it out. And for me, I love that opportunity because then like if I don't know the process, one, I get to learn. I love learning. It's a great thing. And two, I get to add some tools to the toolbox. And if somebody wants something new in leather, I'm like, oh, I don't have the tools for that, so I might as well go buy them and then have those available for the next person.
That's incredible. Because you do so much, do you have like favorite materials you work with? And then maybe ones that are your least favorite or the most challenging?
Yeah, there is a prop that I made. This is talk about the most challenging. There's a prop from Doctor Who, which is a TV show that the fans love called The Key to Time. And what it is six crystal clear acrylic pieces that, when combined, form a 6 inch by 6 inch box. And it's a puzzle box. But the problem is you cannot sand and polish the pieces because then they don't fit together tightly in a puzzle. And so it took me, I'm not kidding you, 6 years to perfect the process of being able to make this in one go without having to mess with it with a material that is ultra expensive. It's $1,000 every time I try it, and it's got probably a 60% success rate. So there's a lot of failure involved in it. And I'm the only one in the world who's making these pieces. And so I try not to make them anymore because they're so utterly frustrating and very expensive to make. But that's probably one of the least favorite materials for me to work in. My favorite materials to work in anymore, I really like 3D printing because I'm amazed at the amount of detail that I can design 3D into something and then have it reappear on a three-dimensional object for myself, and how quickly that process can happen. So I play Santa for nerds. My elves are all the machines, and so I love asking the machines to do something and they do it over and over again, which I like. They're on strike right now. They've all decided to quit on me at the same time. I don't know
Oh.
why, but they just have. So now we're having to renegotiate terms here. But I love working in that as well as leather. I love leather work too, just because it. I love books. I'm a big proponent of tangible, the smell of pages and stuff. And so I make these custom journals and diaries where you can remove the insert and put a new one in there. And so I'm just making basically covers, but like really nice high end, completely custom covers for that. And I really enjoy that process.
Wow, that's incredible. As somebody who does so many different things, do you ever feel sort of like pulled in too many directions? Or how do you kind of like focus when you need to like figure out which tool you're going to use for which project, if that makes sense?
It's really weird. My life is a series of answering questions to random people. And so like the skill set that I have for me the process is cool and it's fun to do, but for me it's the problem solving that I really enjoy. So learning all the skills that go with it just deepens my knowledge to be able to understand what problems need to be solved. But I kid you not, I go to the chiropractor to get adjusted. He's got 3 questions he needs me to answer before he'll work. I go just to random places and they ask me, hey, what do you think of this? What's the answer to this? And it's just part of the problem solving skill set that I have. And so, do I feel pulled in too many directions? No, I'm just an encyclopedia of random information. And so I just use it every day as much as I can.
Oh, that's awesome. What's the process when somebody comes to you and they have an idea of something that they want made? You know, like where do you start? How do you communicate with them to start the design process?
So, as Santa, the one of the biggest things is that people love their nerddom, the thing that really like geeks them out. And that's great, but as a human, I don't have time to learn all of that. And so they think that I'm connected. I play every game that comes out. I watch every movie that comes out, every TV show. And the reality is I don't. I don't like to share that secret, but here we are. Just you and all of your listening audience is going to know that. But basically, what happens is they come to me and they say, "Hey, have you ever heard of this? Can you make it?" The answer is always yes, I can make it. I may have heard it or I may not. But if there's something very specific, I say, "Hey, can you tell me more about it? What does it mean to you? What is this specific section? What is the color scheme? What is the emotion that is evoked from this for you that you're trying to relay when you're holding this object?" And that's really where we start. We start to brainstorm through that. And sometimes I'll get clients who have a very, very clear idea of what they want. And they're actually the least fun to work with because there's no room for artistic growth or discovery. But then it's other times I get people who are like, this is the idea that I want and the theme, but I don't know where to go with it. And I can trust you because you've been doing it long enough to just kind of run with it. And those are my favorite projects to work on because then I get to not only surprise the recipient of the gift, but also the person who's purchasing it. Because it's typically not purchased for themselves. It's usually done as a proposal or as a gift for somebody else. And so then everybody is surprised by this thing that is made. So the process always starts with a little bit of research, and then from there it goes into the best process to make the piece work. That's why the skill set is required to be so varied, is because sometimes a piece works really well for 3D printing, other times it doesn't because it needs to be a specific color or it needs to be more durable or something like that. And then I have to use some other process. And once we understand that, then I give the quote. So I don't even quote until I know exactly what I'm going to do. And then from there, they pay, I make, and then it goes out.
Awesome. And when you do get projects with, some creative freedom, so you can sprinkle in sort of your own ideas, like where do you find inspiration?
If honestly, for me, the point is I want to try to make it as realistic, like in this, like from the world, but in our world, realistic. I want everything to work as best as it can. And so that to me is really the thing that really gets me excited about a project and where to go with it. And it's just kind of, it's that problem solving and then trying to give them something that is completely unexpected. Obviously, they don't want to hire a custom artist to create something you can buy off the shelf. And I've actually had people return stuff before because they've said it looks too off the shelf for me, and I want it to be more artistic. Which is funny because the one piece in particular was like R2D2. I'm like, well, R2D2 looks like R2D2. There's no getting around it. And obviously, the nicer you make it, the more it's going to look like a toy that you bought because they're
Uh-huh.
manufacturing these things en masse. But what they didn't know is mine spoke and mine hit a ring inside of it, and it was like had all these extras into it, still packed into a little 3-inch tall toy looking thing. And that's the idea, is you want it to sit on a shelf and be like, what is that? And then it's like, oh, that's R2D2. And then you grab it, you're like, yes, but R2D2, he says 6 different expressions. It's got this hidden compartment inside of it. It's got all of this extras into it. And those are the things that I really like to do to add to the project to make it, one, make it my own and make it more fun for me to make it, because then it's trying to cram 10 pounds of stuff into a 5-pound bag and make it look good at the same time. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Do you ever have to, make more than one of whatever item you're designing because like it doesn't work out the first time for whatever reason?
Always do everything in doubles. I've learned the hard way. You don't want to make anything, especially with 3D printing, because the time is pretty much the same whether you're making one or you're making 10. And so for me, especially when I'm working with TV projects or movie projects, I always make multiples. And I keep one here. I've got a nerd wall that sits next to me that kind of, it's like a basically a testament to everything that I've made. And it's really geeky and nerdy, but that's where the extras always go. But I always print more than one or make more than one just in case something goes awry. Or if I'm like working on something and I'm like, oh, that's not quite exactly it. I need to make some adjustment. If I can't do it manually, then I'll have to redo it again. And then I just keep tweaking with the pieces and parts. So yeah, having multiples helps along the process. Now, what do I do with those? I never sell them. I just keep them on the shelf here. You know, they just sit around because a lot of the pieces are very, like I said, custom. And so it's like if you don't want the thing that you wanted, nobody else is really going to want it either.
Yeah. Could we dive a bit more into your TV and film work? What are some of the projects that you've worked on and the items that you've made?
I can talk about some of them. I can't talk about. There's NDAs, of course,
Oh,
non-disclosure
sure.
agreements with a lot of these places. I
Okay.
do a lot of work with the Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon. So if there's ever
Cool.
anything that's really kind of bizarre that happens there, I've done a lot of trophies. They just had a competition with people doing the breakdance move, the worm. So they had to do it in a giant circle. So I designed and built the trophy for that. I've built a
Wow.
full size, I designed, they fabricated, but I designed and then drew out the scale version of a full size version of the Tonight Show set in Lego, like full size Lego. So I had to design what that looked like and then draw it out so that they could go and build it to scale so that it still looked like Lego bricks, just that humans could walk inside of it. So that was another fun one. I've done some Harry Potter things for the Universal Studio Parks. Can't say which things I've done, but I've got stuff that's kind of hiding in there. So
Very
I
cool.
love working that because, yeah, it is absolutely cool. And I don't know if you've ever been to Universal to the Harry Potter world,
I
but
have.
it's the immersion. I love the immersion. You get
Mhm.
lost in it and you can't see the other aspects of the park. So when you're in Harry Potter's world, you're in Harry Potter's world. And so making the pieces that I had for them is really fun because to me, they're Easter eggs because I know where they're at. So I have to go find them. But then to see them blend in so seamlessly is really nice. And then for Disney, I've done a lot of stuff for their television shows, so like especially Disney Kids. So I've done custom bobbleheads. I made a custom American Girl doll for an episode of a TV show because the rich girl in the show, her parents convinced American Girl doll to make her as a doll, and so obviously that doesn't exist. So they're like, hey, we need you to make this likeness of this girl as an American Girl doll so that we can have it in this episode. So I did that.
Wow.
Um, yeah, it's just random stuff. I do for Disney theme parks. I made these, which are custom carbonites. I started
Cool.
doing these way before Disney ever did, and then they opened the Star Wars theme park, and they were like, "Hey, we've got this opening, this soft open. We're inviting all these super fans to come do it, but we don't have enough photographs of our version of the custom carbonites. Can we use your promo photos as our promo photos?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure, go ahead." And so they actually had all of my work up at Disneyland while they were opening up this new Star Wars theme park, so everybody could get their custom carbonite as well. So just stuff like that.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Wow, that's incredible. Do you ever make, so it sounds like you're making like a one item to be used as like a prop or as a piece in a set or something like that, but do you ever um mass produce items to sell to people, as like
I do.
souvenirs?
I do. I'm not a fan. I do what's called short runs. As a because I'm a shop of one. Me and my robot elves. And so I can't make thousands of pieces. So the most I ever make is 100 of something, and even by then I get bored with it, making things en masse like that. But when I've done a lot of like when a movie comes out, they'll do a lot of promotional giveaways to go with the movie. And so I recently just completed I think it was 65 uh, tiny functional custom vacuum cleaners for this show that's coming out about a ghost who inhabits the body of this vacuum cleaner. And so they needed me to create a vacuum that looked like the one in the movie because they couldn't use a brand name one, so they had to design their own. But then they wanted it to actually be able to vacuum things. And so I had to do all of the math and gearing and all the motor work to be able to create 60 of these pieces and get them out before the movie premiere. And so I do things like that. I've done custom headphones. I've done, I've probably yeah, I've done a handful of things. I've hundreds of like tiny little favors for things, like tiny little trinkets and giveaways. I did this entire run of things called Midnight and Friends, which are tiny little cat figures in little 2-inch cube boxes. So it's
So cute.
hundreds of those. So yeah, I do mass production. I just try to keep it at a short run because it just if you need more than that, I'm too expensive to be able to to justify the cost. And so it'd be better for me to design it and then find you a manufacturer in Japan, China or Japan, India, Vietnam, somewhere like that to be able to actually produce the pieces because they'll be a lot less expensive for you.
Totally.
Because obviously the whole point of doing something like that is to make money because they want to be able to sell the pieces. So if they're spending all of it on Paul, then it's not gonna work out as well.
Totally, that makes sense. Does your creative approach change when you're working with maybe someone one on one, like an individual, versus for a big company?
Nope. My process doesn't change, but whenever you work for a corporation, it's called design by committee. You are not the end of the line. The Tonight Show is, I've worked with them long, I've worked with them for almost 12 years now. So now they give me freedom. They say, we need it to be this. Do your thing, show us the process while you're doing it. When I'm working with individuals, there's a lot more creative leeway. When you're working with companies, I did this job for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and every time I talked to them, they had a team of like 30 different artists, and every time anytime I did anything, I needed approval as far as color design went. So I'd submit it, and I would get a different artist every single time. So I'd get different, and so it was this design by committee trying to appeal to everybody, but nobody, and then the custom. So it's a really weird process. So that process. The thing that's different about it is it takes a lot longer because everybody needs to sign off on stuff. Whereas when I'm working with individuals or working with companies that trust me, it's just here, do this, go, and then get us the product at the end.
Gotcha, gotcha. You mentioned working a lot with magicians or magician items. Is that what they're called? I don't
Yep.
know. Could
Magic
you,
items,
yeah,
sure. Yeah.
magic items. Can you talk to me a bit about that? Because that seems, I guess from like the outside looking in, that those seem like they would be particularly challenging because you need sort of like hidden things or, so like, could you talk to me a bit about some work you've done in the magician world?
But I'm a nerd. I do not hide that at all. So when I was a kid, I was the nerdy kid who liked magic, and so I love sleight of hand. I love the perception. It's about fooling other people. It's the trick of it. And what I learned is that we're actually pretty simple animals as far as like what we perceive and what we don't. Um, Putting things in plain sight is probably one of the easiest way to hide something. Either that, or we do like literal smoke and mirrors. I've got a Harry Potter piece that I've done called the Mirror of Erised, and if you're familiar with Harry Potter, it's the mirror that you can see your deepest, darkest desires within the reflection. And so what I do with those is I use a two-way mirror. And so when you're looking at it, you see yourself. And then if you press a button, then you can actually see your deepest, darkest desires, which is always, it ends up being a ring box of some sort. So the ring is inside the mirror with also like a picture or a three-dimensional version of the people together. And so that's your deepest, darkest desire. So you see yourself, then you press this button, and then you see through it, and you see this new life or this deepest, darkest desire. So that's one way of doing it. So using a two-way mirror so that actually the light behind it, when you illuminate the objects, they become visible through this mirror. Otherwise, they're not.
Wow.
I've done a lot of sleight of hand. Like if you, I do a lot of hidden things. So like some objects will look like they're solid, but then there's compartments that open up that aren't there. So especially when you're dealing with nerddoms, people get excited. They're like, "Oh, that's that thing I love from that show," and they're like, "Oh, but wait!" And then they do something to the object and open it up. And they're like, "How did that even fit in there?" And it's all about mechanics. If you've ever seen like a woman who's sawn in half, it's just because she's sucking her body up into half of it, and then they're cutting, and there's fake legs over there. It's a matter of compacting things, and then when they open it back up, she stretches herself back out. And that's the exact same thing that I do when I'm approaching these projects. Is I have to figure out a way to accordion things down into a very tight space, but then when you reveal it, I want it to look as though it's even bigger, like it shouldn't fit in there. And Doctor Who pieces work a lot for that because there's with the TARDIS, it's always larger on the inside. And I make one where you actually open the doors and it looks like the room is huge, even though it's this tiny little box, because of the way that the image is formed. It's wrapped around, and then it's got this like false depth to it. But then you can actually take the top of so you're looking at the inside of the TARDIS, the entire thing, but then you can lift up the top, and then there's a hidden ring that actually comes out and it like folds down and presents this ring. And you
Wow.
wouldn't even know that that's in there because you're like, but I saw inside the box. Where is this ring hidden? And you're like, that's the magic part behind it.
Yeah. Would you say those objects are more challenging to design because it sounds like they require a lot more maneuvering than maybe something a little more, I guess, straightforward, if that makes sense?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's the mechanical aspect of it is you have to think about the mechanism from the very beginning. It's never an afterthought, it's the very first thought. So you're like, okay, this is the approach that we're going to take with it. Now let's build the container around it. And then everything has to move very precisely. And the thing with hiding stuff is you don't want visible seams. You don't want it to be I need things to be tight so that, like, if they accidentally fumble with it or whatever, it doesn't just reveal itself. So you have to build all of these within tolerances, which is the boring part of the math part that we never thought we'd use in high school. That's what I'd use all the time is to try and figure out how to make everything fit in there. And it's a lot of cramming stuff into tiny, tiny spaces. There's another Doctor Who prop from the Jane Chronicles, I think is what it is, but it was called a sonic lipstick, and it was so Doctor Who has a sonic screwdriver. That's what he does to do all his magic stuff. And this lady had a lipstick, so it was a standard lipstick, but inside of it was a light up compartment. So it had a little thing that you'd twist it like a normal lipstick, and there'd be a wand that would light up, and it had to make sounds. Well, on television, it's all fake. It's TV magic, so it lights up with post production. It makes sound through post production. But the person who wanted this is like, no, I want the actual real thing. So I had to go find the real tube of lipstick that they used and then figure out
Wow.
how to tear everything out, but be able to put it all back together, but be also be able to hide a soundboard, the wiring, a speaker, a light switch, the light, and still make it be able to twist up and fit within this tiny little container. And it's a lot of micro soldering and switches and cutting and to make it look like this is just a normal tube of lipstick, but look at all these other things that it can do.
Wow, that's incredible. I'm sure it varies widely, but I'm so curious because your items and your processes are so intricate. How long do these items normally take from like start to finish to make?
I am an abnormal in this regard. I just want to put that out there so nobody gets depressed when they hear this. I'm fast. So if a Tonight Show calls, so last week, or it's 2 weeks ago, the Tonight Show called and they gave me 5 jobs on 5 different days. And the last one that they gave me, I'm no exaggeration here, I'm going to be straight with you. They called me at 2 p.m. I live in Nebraska. They film in New York. They're like, we need a piece tomorrow. So you have until the end of shipping today, which was 6 p.m. So 4 hours. They're like, this is what I need you to make. This does not exist. You need to design it, fabricate it, ship it within 4 hours. And that's typically my life. Like,
Oh my
fast.
God. That does not
But I've been
sound
doing this for a while.
humanly possible. How
No. And I've been told that. I've been told that many times. This is impossible. Nobody can do this. I'm like, well, not nobody, just not a lot of people. So yeah.
Okay, so 4 hours, that's crazy. What is the longest time an item has ever taken you?
I just finished it. A 1 year and 2 months is the longest something took me to make. And that's because it was a prop from a movie that I had made multiple times, but then I got my hands on the actual prop from the movie, and I was I'm very lucky to be one of the few to actually have seen it and held it and be able to take measurements from it. So then I could actually reproduce this piece over. But then the process that goes into it to make all of these different, and it was a mechanical piece. So it was a Fabergé egg that opened up. There's a vial inside that's made with real gold and crystal. Then that goes into another box that's covered in mirror gold. And then that goes inside of a wooden box that's also covered in mirror gold with a dagger and hinges and all this stuff. And so is all of these really complicated pieces that just didn't exist. And so us trying to manufacture them in such a way that it could be reproducible, but also cost effective. And so that process just takes a long, long time. So I shipped that one out last week. And it was
Wow.
over a year. Yeah. That's a patient customer because most customers are like, I want it. Now give it to me immediately. But
Uh-huh.
when you're working with custom things, sometimes it's just not possible.
Totally, totally. Do you ever experience sort of like times when you don't know what to do? Like, has anyone ever come to you with an idea and you're like, "Oh, I do not know how to do that," or like,
I
"I
would
don't
love
think
to
I
say yes,
can."
but no. If I don't know how to do it, I've got a few friends. I keep a very tight circle of really smart makers. And so if I get into a point where I don't think I know how to do it, or the process that I would pick is not the best approach, I'll go and I summon. We have a group. It's called the League of Goddamn Gentlemen, is what we're called. And what we do is we actually get together and we brainstorm these types of things and try to figure out the best approach to it. But we all come from theater, so we all have the exact same skill sets or variations, but they specialized in something that I didn't, and so that's typically what happens.
That's so cool. That's awesome. I want to talk about the social aspect of your work because you just brought it up because you share a lot of content online. You stream on Twitch sometimes. You
Mhm.
making things, and you have a really great YouTube channel. Anyone who's listening, please go visit Paul's YouTube channel. I'll link it in the show notes because it's so cool. You like show your objects that you make, and like I like one of the pieces that was one of my favorites is I love the up house that you made, and it's a ring box and you have a lot of cool different ring boxes and designs and very cool stuff on there. But I'm curious what the social or why the social aspect and sharing your work online or among your friends is important to what you do.
Well, I think artists can wallow in anonymity because they're not sharing their work, or and then people will discover it after you die. But I'm alive and still want to get paid to do this, so I just constantly put my stuff out there. When I first started out, it was really to build reputation so that I could actually charge a livable wage. And so I started putting it out there. And then what I noticed is that people were looking for this stuff and they would constantly they're like, I'm huge on Pinterest. I don't even have a Pinterest account. I'm huge on Pinterest because
Cool.
everybody else is putting my images there. And so what I found there was that putting things on social media allowed and tagging it correctly, basically to show that what it's from or whatever, then people would be searching for it, and it lives in perpetuity. So it acts as the best advertising that I don't have to pay for. I don't do a lot of ads because I find that what happens is people ignore them, or you can't get enough information out about what it is that you make. So, like if I showed you the up house and said, Paul can make anything, you're going to see the up house and go, I don't want the up house. Instead of, oh, I can make anything else. And I only know this because I've done enough trade shows where I'd put a smattering of random things on a table and then people would walk by and go, I don't want any of that. And I'm like, but I had a sign behind me that says, I can make you anything you ask for. But they would look at the table, go, I don't want any of that, and then just keep going. And
Mm.
so that's why social media is great because I'm then not sitting there saying, buy my stuff, buy my stuff, buy my stuff. I'm just putting it out there. And then if somebody is interested in finding it, they find me and then say, hey, is this something else that you can make? Which is a great segue. Thank you for my new book, which is the Quit Selling Your Shit, which basically I wrote this book because I've dealt with enough creative people to understand that we should stop trying to sell our things. We shouldn't say, buy this thing, buy this thing, buy this thing, because then we are only equating our value to the purchasable price of an object. What we should be doing is selling ourselves, selling the artist behind it. So, product first selling is going to kill your creative business. Selling you as the artist is actually going to help your business and help you charge more because they're not just investing in the object, they're investing in the person behind it. And so, that's really the thing that I'm
Interesting.
pushing more. Yeah. So, quit selling your shit, sell yourself. And what's nice about that is when I started doing that, when I really leaned into that, instead of you're not buying a custom carbonite, you're buying Paul's custom carbonite. Then what I did is I ended up putting a zero on all my prices. That's really yeah, exactly. That's the face, and you're
Wow.
like,
Yeah.
wow,
That's
yeah.
awesome.
And but then I was like, well, this is either going to sink me or I'm going to float really well. And I ended up floating really well. It's because you're building this reputation. And so having the stuff online really helps with that. But the thing that is more important than just putting images of a thing is putting images of you working on it, of showing the process, of showing the artist behind the art, the creative person. If you ever like, one of my clients is actually one of my like consulting clients runs a mowing business. He mows yards. It's a very creative business, believe it or not. But people wouldn't think it because you're just mowing lawns. But I'm sure you've probably caught on when you're doom scrolling on your phone, the people who take those yards that are really overgrown and they do the mowing on it. It's relaxing for us to watch that. You're like, oh, I want to see this transformation. They're showing them doing the work. They're not just saying here's a before and an after. They're showing here's a before, here's me doing the work sped up, and then here's the after reveal, and then you get to see the artist behind the creative work. Now, the cool thing about that is once we start to embrace the artist behind it, we understand that we're now wizards and we can start charging for magic items that we're making. And that's the mindset that a lot of creatives aren't in yet, is that they don't recognize themselves as being a wizard, being somebody who creates magic items, and that their value goes really up. Now we're in award season right now with television and entertainment and all that stuff. If you notice, people are walking down the runways in these beautiful gowns and outfits, but nobody ever asks, what are you wearing? Because then the answer would always be pants. What they say is, who are you wearing? And that's a great analogy because then we're like, oh, who is that? Who is that? Who is that? It's never what is that. It's like clothes. But no, it's so understanding that the person behind it, the artist behind it, is going to be infinitely more valuable than the thing that you're selling.
Wow, that's so interesting. And yeah, that pairs super well with, your new book coming out, but also Gamify Business. Because as I was doing research on Gamify Business, it sounds like that's a really important mindset shift that you like to teach people. How did you develop this mindset shift, and how do you get people to sort of recognize the value within themselves? Because I feel like that would probably be a difficult thing to get someone there if they're not already, you know what I mean, on that path there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, it makes total sense. And the thing is I just try to have fun. I've been doing this business, like I said, for over 20 years. I've been doing arts and stuff for over 30 years, and I love my job. I have fun every single day. And I know a lot of people who go to their job and they hate it. And then they come home and they try to do something that makes them feel human again. And that's really what I do every single day. So with Gamify Business, what we do is we actually take something that we all understand, which is gaming principles. We've taken some character at some point and leveled it from 0 to 10. We've done it, and we understand that process. So if I said, "Oh, okay, we gotta get your character up from level 1 to level 2," you're like, "Okay, I register that." But when you're talking about business, we're like, "Okay, we got to move your business needle forward." They're like, "I don't know." Well, we need your ROI, we need your ROAS, we need all this information. They're like, "I don't know what that means." So what happened is I actually fumbled into this entire thing. I was working with a client who were very nerdy like myself. One of them used to work for Blizzard, which is the creator of World of Warcraft. And so we were sitting there talking one day, and they've been in business for over 13 years, I think, at that point. And when we were chatting, I said, "Okay, what's everybody doing in this business?" Because the business wasn't doing as well as they would like it to. And they said, "Well, we all do everything." And I'm like, "Well, you can't do that in business. Everybody has to have a primary role. You can help, but we all have our primary roles." I said, "So how about this? Tomorrow I'm going to come back and we're going to play Dungeons and Dragons Business Edition." I'm just pulling this out of the air. I didn't know. I was just like, "Let's try it." And so I went and actually got a Dungeon Master's Guide, and I was like flipping through it, and I actually created a campaign. So we came back the next day and I had everybody create character sheets. But instead of being like a ranger or a wizard or a warrior, they were their role in the business. I am the head creative person. I am the manager. I am the bookkeeper. Okay, cool. So now they have these character sheets and they understand who they were within the business, and now they're within this group. So then the
Cool.
encounters that they had, the monsters that they would encounter were actually business problems, like how do I get more funding? I want to go to the bank and get a loan for my business. Well, that's like going to the dragon and asking for some of the hoard. So how do we accomplish this? Well, the artistic person is going to be good, but if the artistic person went out there and said, "Hey, dragon, give me all your money because I'm a great artist," they're going to get shut down. You need the person who does the bookkeeping to be like, "This is why if we borrow money from you, we can be able to pay it back." So that person really needs to spearhead the adventure. And so we played this game for like I think it was like 4 hours is what we played. And they would earn gold star stickers. They would earn all these achievements through gaming. But we were also teaching business. And I could see when they would figure something out, their eyes kind of got big and they're like, "Oh, I got that. Okay." And then at the end, the guy came up to me and he's like, "Is this what business is?" I'm like, "Yeah, man, this is it. This is all business is." He's like, "It's kind of
Wow.
fun. And I think I understand it now." And that was really the seed for Gamify Business was like, Gamify Business is just role playing your business, but I want to do it and have some fun with it. And so we've got little quizzes that you can take, and we can figure out what your character is. We do character sheets, we do looking for group, and then we do these little campaigns to kind of get you out into there. And so we're having fun. We're exploring who we are and what we want out of our business. And then we get to have these encounters. We're meeting new groups. We get to see how well we synergize together. I love using that corporate term, and do all these things like what works, what doesn't work. And then at the end of it, everybody's got a sense of ownership in their journey. And so they get to become the hero on this epic adventure that is business and life.
Wow, that's incredible. That's such a unique approach, but it makes a lot of sense. It sounds like you're making business one fun, two understandable, and just like more memorable. And that's really incredible. Um, I was curious, what something on your website that you talk about is your rule of 100. Could you tell us what that is?
So the rule of 100, it flies in the face of everything that we have come to know from social media. So social media, I go and I put a post out there. Now, how do we gauge success? We gauge it by the number of likes and comments, right? So I'm like, I'm going to go out there. I'm going to take this. Here's this great thing that I've worked on. I'm going to put it out there. I know it's going to, like, I just wrote a book. I just wrote this book. Okay. So I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to do a social media post. I'm going to put it out there. And if I don't get a million clicks or a million likes or a million comments, then I've failed, right? Wrong. The thing is especially as a creative, your work will not appeal to everybody. It just won't. It's just, and it shouldn't, because when you try to mass appeal your work, especially as a creative, you muddy it down. It becomes very blurred and you lose your focus, you lose your passion within it. So, what the rule of 100 says is instead of needing a million likes, you need 100, but you need 100 people who will actually buy your product. So quit trying to cater to the million people, cater to 100. Because if you had a consistent 100 people buying from you, you're going to live well. You're not going to be a millionaire. You're not going to have a yacht, okay? But you're not going to have to worry about how am I going to pay my rent this week? How am I going to get my groceries? You're going to be comfortable. Now, people are like, well, I want more. How do I know? Blah, blah, blah. Here's the thing. Before social media, when we lived in towns, I live in Omaha, Nebraska, which is we call ourselves a city, but we're actually just a really big town. And it's got all these little like towns around it. Main Street USA, when you used to go to a storefront, back before we had social media and all this stuff, you wouldn't want a million people in there. If you were the business owner and a million people showed up to your business, it would ruin your business because you're like, they're going to wreck the store. They're going to steal everything that we got. There's no way to handle this. But if 100 people came in and bought from you every single day, that's a successful week. That's a really good week, and your business is doing well. That's the rule of 100. Quit trying to think about needing to appeal to everybody. Think about who are my 100 people that I really want to appeal to that I can convince to buy. And if you are unsure who that is, look in the mirror because you are your best customer because you make the things that you like. And trust me, there are people out there who like what you like. You just need to find them. And the internet is great for that. So when you go out there to do your social media, talk to those people. Talk to them as though you're talking to yourself. Pitch to them. Show them who you are, the artist behind it. Tell them the work that you're doing. And then that will get those 100 people to like you. So now when I post on social media, I'm like, oh, they got 225 likes. Woohoo, I'm 125 more than I needed. Now I'm not depressed every time I post on social media. Now I'm like, awesome. All right, I'm doing what I'm doing. Because a like does not equal dollar. And unless you're farming clicks, which that is a job, but that is not a job for creatives. It's a job for people who just want to farm clicks, and that's more of a linear thing. So quit trying to think that you need to have that. Is it good to have one that goes viral every once in a while? Sure, but even if you got a million, those likes don't equate to dollars. So try to figure out how to make those things equate to dollars and appeal to those people in particular.
Gotcha. I absolutely love that because I think it breaks it down in a way where people don't get overwhelmed with trying to do everything at once. And that's something that I've struggled with is like I'll kind of get like analysis paralysis because I'll be like, oh, I have this great idea, but oh, I have to do X, Y, Z. And like if I don't, become a viral success overnight, it's a failure. And it's like, no, like, do one. That's something I go back to is like, do one thing. If you're feeling like overwhelmed of like all these decisions or trying to do this or that, just do one thing. Because if you just like sit there and think about it and get overwhelmed, you're not going to do anything. And then you do nothing. So I love how you kind of break that down to just get people to just focus on 100. That's very tangible. A million is almost like too abstract to think about. So I absolutely love that. I was curious, what does Gamify Business, if someone were to like sign up for it today, like what does it actually look like in practice? Is it like meetings with you? Is it like what does it actually look like?
So there are different versions of this that I do. So there's a one-on-one consulting business that I do where I come in and actually come to your business and and I don't care where you're at, I'll come to you and we actually talk and we'll go through these things live. I find out what what are the things that you're struggling with, how can we adjust it, what does the actual business look like. And this is all stemmed from the creative and custom based business that I ran before, so I can come in and actually talk to you about whatever your business is and understand what you're trying to do. So that's one version of it. And then we work one-on-one, and if I'm not there all the time, then we can meet via Zoom or Discord or however we're meeting here, so we can just have those conversations. The first couple of days are usually the most intensive. That's when we go through the book and we start actually doing things like the character sheet and looking for group and trying to figure out how your business runs. The other one is I come in and do a workshop. So I'll bring in, like I've got one scheduled for a university here local, where I just come in and they've got 40, 50 students there. And I start off by asking two questions. What are you passionate about? And everybody's got that, I'm passionate about acting. I'm passionate about art or whatever. Then the second question, which is the hard one to answer, is what is it that you do differently with that passion than anyone else? And that usually takes them a minute to figure out. Sometimes takes days. But once you figure that one out, that's actually the seed to your business. So when we're doing big group things like that, that's the first two questions that I ask. Then we start working on character sheets and that kind of stuff. And it's interactive. So I'm going to come in there. I play the dungeon master, but I also play a barkeep, which is why it looks like I'm standing in front of a bar, because I play the barkeep, because that's where your groups always come. And that's where the adventurers know to go to learn about the next new campaign or whatever. So I play this character called the barkeep and the game master. And I come in there and we just do all of that. So that's the live version of it, which I think is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And then I can also do online group versions of it where the people don't know each other. And so we do those, and you pay a certain amount of money. And this is held, we do a big 4 hour, sometimes it's two, but usually it's 4 hour introduction video where we do all of this work. And it just allows you to do it and be held accountable because you're on camera or you're on screen doing this. And then from there, we do like a weekly meetup about once every week for about 4 weeks. And then by then, you've got a business plan, you've got a plan of action for 90 days. You know how to go out and actually earn money, real world money, doing the thing that it is that you're passionate about.
Wow. That's incredible. That sounds so fun. That's
It
amazing.
is.
As someone who does so many different things, I was curious, what does a day in your life look like?
Believe it or not, on top of all of this, I am a stay at home dad. Like I have
I
three
love
boys.
it.
My wife goes, she's a costume designer, so she actually goes to this theater and she does costume design full time. That's her job. I have
So
a basement
cool.
studio. So I am the stay-at-home dad. So my day starts by getting my kids ready for school. I get up at 5. I'm an early riser, always have been. And so I get up at 5 and then I help get the kids ready for school. Once they're done off to school, my wife goes to work and then I come down into my studio and I start to work. And it really just depends on what the project is. I'm writing a fiction book right now, my very first fiction book, because why not?
Ooh.
So that one I'm working on, and so I'm in my editing. This is like the fourth edit that we've done on this book, trying to get it right. So that's something I'll work on for a little while. I answer emails, or if I've got a project that's on my desk that I need to take care of, I'll do that. So right after this meeting, I actually have to go and deliver some parts that I had manufactured for a company here locally. But then, I'll come back here, I'll work on my book a little bit, or I'll work on another puzzle box that I have to give to another client that's got to ship out tomorrow. So it just really depends. And then at 3 o'clock, I go get my kids from school, come home. I might work a couple more hours. I'll do some podcasts or something like that, and then make dinner, get my kids ready for bed. I read to my kids every single night, 30 to 45 minutes. And my kids are not
Wow.
young. That started off when they were young, but now
Uh-huh.
I got a middle schooler going into high school. I've got a college kid, and I've got a 12-year-old, and they sit and listen to me read. We've read well over 350 books, and these aren't picture books; these are novels. And so,
Wow.
actually, read for about 30 to 45 minutes at night, and then we get done, and then my wife and I sit and we pass memes to each other until we go to sleep. So that's my day.
Wow, I love that. That's so cool that your wife is a really creative person as well. Do you guys ever work together?
Yep. That's actually how we met. I was a set designer, she's a costume designer, and we met on a show. And then we collaborated a
So
few times
cute.
here and there. Yeah. And so, yeah, we collaborate a lot, but those ships, they pass. They don't go aligned. She loves what I do. I love what she does, but we made a promise because we're both trained in each other's work. And so we made a promise when we got together that we will not step on each other's toes. So I don't do costumes unless I'm building puppets. And then she does not do set design unless she's required to with her work. And so, but we help each other when we need to. Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. You guys sound like such a cool couple. That's amazing.
We have
Um,
fun.
um, how do you define creativity?
Okay, so every artist is creative. Not every creative is an artist. That's the biggest differential. Creativity, by definition, is the ability to come up with an original idea and execute it. Okay, and humans, as far as we know, humans are the only ones that can do this. Okay, so if you think about that, that's pretty monumental. And so the making of things, the building of stuff, that's boring, and anybody can be taught to do that. But the ability to ideate, to be able to come up with something new, to be creative, that is truly a unique human thing that a lot of people just ignore and don't want to pursue. And so creativity is the ability to like look at your situation and come up with solutions that are not apparent to other people. And I've worked with everything from an actuator, not an actuator, a, a bookkeeper. I can't actuary. That's the word. So I've worked with an actuary. I've worked with a landscaping guy. I've worked with teachers. I've worked with students. I've worked with artists. I've worked with so many different people, but they're all creative. Cooks. I love working with cooks and chefs because they are super creative. It's just we want to do something that's new and unique, and it's how we approach that. Dental hygienist was one of my first clients ever, and I was like, what would a dental hygienist know? Well, she had invented a product or came up with the idea for a product because of her job. She met a very specific need to what she was doing, and then from there she created an entire business around it. Those are creatives to me. It's just people who want to try something a little bit different, don't want to be in the box that they're in, or they want to make the box that they're in more comfortable.
I love that. Is there something that you haven't yet made that you would love to one day?
Yeah. There's something called oh, now the word's going to escape my mind, but it's basically look little mechanical boxes. I love making like I have a lot of ideas, but they're Paul Pape originals as opposed to being custom pieces. But it's all of these mechanical pieces that I'd really like to get into to be able to, like little robots and stuff to make. I've made robots for other companies and stuff, but there's some art and stuff like that back in in the 30s, 20s, 30s. People were making all these really nice mechanical tin toys and that kind of it. They make little birds that if you wind it up, the little bird pops up and it sings the bird song. And it's all done with bellows and little gearing to make the bird move and such. And those are the kind of things that I would really like to get into. And I think whenever I hit retirement age or whatever that is, that's what I'll probably end up doing is making little cute mechanical pieces just to sell as individual pieces of art.
I love that. I love that. What is your definition of success?
Mm. Um, it's not fame or fortune. I like to get that out of the way. I don't need to be famous. I don't need to be rich. I want to be comfortable, and I want to be able to do the things that I do without feeling like I'm going to struggle to do it. That to me is success. Also, being able to help people. I genuinely that is. I mean, I play Santa. That's literally. I'm here to help people to make their lives better, and I really want to do that. So for me, the success is seeing other people thrive. 96, 97% of people who pursue a creative degree do not do that creative job when they leave. That's such a high number. Like 3 to 4% of people actually pursue, like, do this as a career. And I think it's because they just don't have the confidence or they don't have the skill set to be able to go out and pursue that. And so really that's what Gamify does for me is it allows me to go and talk to creatives and say, hey, no, take those skills that you have because those skills are unique. You're not going to find a lot of people with them. And now let's actually make you profitable doing it, to give them back that little bit that because they obviously wanted to do something within that world, but then they just kind of lost the direction. So to me, that's really what success feels like. It's being able to help people to see them lift up, and then I get to bask in their successes.
I love that. Thank you so much, Paul. Are you ready to move into the lightning round?
Let's do it. Yeah.
All right. What is something new that you've tried lately?
Therapy. I tried therapy for the first
I
time.
love
So
that.
me too. Everyone, go get therapy. We all need it. Just go
We
do
all
it.
need it. I think the
We
world
all
would be
need
a
it.
better place if everyone went to therapy. I absolutely love that.
Absolutely.
And congrats on starting. That's wonderful.
Thank you.
Do you have a lesson or a message that you want to share with listeners?
Yes, absolutely. Life and business is an adventure. Don't be an NPC, a non-playable character. Become the hero of your own adventure. There you go.
Wow. I love that. I absolutely love that. What is one thing you wish you knew when you were first starting out?
That I am more important than my work. That I am the reason that people buy the things that I sell. Like start with knowing who you are. I hid behind my work. I didn't sign my work like the first. I know this is the lightning round, but like there's a
Oh,
reason
it's
behind
okay.
this.
Go off. Go off. I love
But like,
it.
but for the first 15 years, I didn't sign my work. And because people would hire me to make, can you make an R2D2? Can you make a golden snitch? Can you make all these things that belong to other IPs, intellectual property. And so all these other pieces. And so I thought, well, they wanted that. They didn't want me as the artist behind it. And I was wrong, 100% wrong. No, I should have. And that's why if I could go back and say anything, it's like really embrace who you are, Paul, as the artist. Don't hide behind the work in there.
I love that. And that's like basically the thesis of your new book, right? Quit selling your shit, like,
Yep.
or like a big
Yeah.
part of it. Yeah, that's
It's what it
awesome.
is. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Paul, this has been amazing. I have so enjoyed talking to you and learning about all the different things that you do. Where can everybody find you, check out your work, commission you to make something for them, buy your book, enroll in Gamify Business? Tell us all the things.
All right. So because I've been doing this for so long and social media has been my main thing, I am Paul Pape Designs. That's my name, Paul Pape Designs everywhere. So, it's paulpapedesigns.com, but also on all my social media handles, it's still Paul Pape Designs. But if you're interested in Gamify Business, I have gamifybusiness.com where you can learn about all of it. If you go there, gamifybusiness.com/podcast, you can actually download the first 2 chapters of my book, The Creative Player's Handbook to Business. So you can kind of see what it's all about. You can buy my new book, How to Quit Selling Your Shit, on Amazon. So just go there. It's available in both ebook as well as a paperback like this. It's a really good read. It's really easy read, but yeah, go check that out. And then I'm on social media everywhere. So just come find me. And if you ever have a question,
Wonderful.
ask it. Ask it. You'll be surprised. Paul will answer it. Me, not a robot, not an AI, not an assistant. Paul will answer your question. So just message me.
Fantastic. I will link all of that in the show notes so people can come to you or contact you easily. And I'm going to buy this book for my boyfriend because my partner, he's super into 3D printing. He's super creative. He paints, he designs, he does a bunch of different things. And as you were talking, I was like, oh my gosh, John would be obsessed with you. So I'm going to buy your book for him. And
Excellent.
everyone listening should also buy your book. But
Please do.
thank you so much, Paul. This has been so wonderful. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Waverly. I really appreciate it. It's been a wonderful conversation.